Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. Life works the same way. The more we cling to control, the more we lose touch with flow. The quantum field, the invisible fabric of reality, doesn't respond to force. It responds to freedom. The universe doesn't move with tension. It moves with trust. Every quantum leap, every shift in consciousness, begins with one silent act: letting go. Because holding on is resistance, and resistance is the language of fear. Letting go, however, is faith. It's the vibration that tells the universe, I'm ready for what's next. When you stop chasing what's leaving, you make space for what's arriving. And in that sacred space, between the end and the beginning, the quantum shift quietly awakens, rewriting your energy, your timeline, and your destiny. Today, we'll explore lessons that reveal how the true transformation of your life, your energy, and your destiny begins the moment you release your grip on what no longer serves you. Collapse the old wave. Reality responds to release. In quantum physics, everything that exists begins as a field of possibilities, countless unseen outcomes vibrating in the quantum realm, waiting to be observed. When a scientist observes a particle, that wave of potential collapses into one reality. The same principle applies to our lives. Every thought, emotion, and belief we hold acts as an observation that shapes our personal reality. When you continuously focus on the same pain, the same fear, or the same regret, you are, in a sense, observing that same quantum pattern over and over. You're feeding it energy, attention, and emotion, the very ingredients that give it form. That's why the past can feel so heavy. It's not the memory itself that hurts you, but the constant energetic replay of it within your consciousness. What most people don't realize is that attachment operates like a loop in the quantum field. When you cling to something, whether it's a person, an event, or even an old version of yourself, you trap your energy in that probability wave. You keep that timeline alive because your attention is acting as the observer that sustains it. The moment you stop feeding it with your focus and emotional charge, it begins to dissolve. You collapse that old wave, and immediately, new realities begin to rise out of the quantum sea of infinite possibilities. This is why letting go is one of the most powerful forms of creation. You're not losing anything, you're simply releasing the grip that keeps you stuck in repetition. Think of it like a painter who wants to create something new but refuses to wash the old colors off the brush. The new image cannot appear until the old one is cleared away. The universe works in the same way. Your consciousness is the brush, and the present moment is your canvas. Only when you empty your hands of yesterday's weight can you paint a new tomorrow. The past is not a prison, though it can feel like one when you carry it too long. In truth, it's just a waveform energy vibrating at a frequency that once matched who you were. But as you grow, evolve, and awaken, that frequency no longer aligns with your higher vibration. Holding on to it creates friction, resistance, and emotional pain. That pain isn't punishment, it's feedback from the universe, telling you it's time to release what no longer resonates. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting or pretending something never happened. It means freeing the energy that has been frozen in a memory. It's about reclaiming the power you unconsciously left behind in your attachment. When you release the old energy, you don't erase the lesson, you integrate it. You allow it to become wisdom rather than weight. So, when you catch yourself replaying an old moment or clinging to something that no longer serves you, remind yourself, the wave only collapses when you stop observing it, stop returning to that memory, stop feeding it with fear or longing. Breathe, observe without emotion, let it fade into neutrality. In that stillness, the energy that once held you captive transforms into creative potential, ready to form a new reality. The moment you truly let go, the quantum field responds instantly. New paths unfold, opportunities emerge, synchronicities begin to appear because you are no longer vibrating at the frequency of your past. You have shifted your energy, and therefore, you have shifted timelines. This is what spiritual masters and quantum scientists both mean when they speak of transformation. The universe is not withholding change, It is waiting for you to release resistance. Letting go is not an act of weakness, it is the ultimate act of trust. It is saying to the universe, I no longer need to control what was, I am ready for what can be. And in that moment of surrender, you align yourself with the infinite intelligence that orchestrates everything. You stop being the one who fights against the current and become one with the current itself. You are the observer, the creator, and the energy that moves between both. When you release your hold on what no longer serves you, the universe doesn't take something away, it replaces it with what your soul has been ready for all along. And that is the moment the old wave collapses and the new reality begins to form. The universe mirrors your frequency. Everything in existence vibrates from the tiniest atom to the most distant galaxy. This vibration is not random, it is the universal language of energy, frequency, and resonance. Quantum physics teaches us that everything in the universe, including your thoughts, emotions, and intentions, emits a frequency. These vibrations travel outward into the quantum field, interacting with everything around you. And just like a mirror, the universe reflects those frequencies back to you in the form of people, events, and experiences that match your inner state. If you carry fear, anger, or scarcity in your heart, life will echo those vibrations. You'll notice more reasons to feel afraid, more people who disappoint you, and more situations that confirm your worries. It's not punishment, it's resonance. The universe isn't judging you, it's simply responding to the signal you're broadcasting. Every emotion is an energetic code that either aligns you with abundance or keeps you trapped in lack. When you hold on to anxiety, guilt, or pain, your frequency becomes dense, and the field around you rearranges itself to match that density. Letting go, therefore, is not only a spiritual act, but an energetic recalibration. When you release the emotions that drag your vibration down, you change the very signal you send into the quantum field. You stop transmitting the energy of struggle and start radiating the energy of trust. The moment you do, life begins to mirror it back. People treat you differently. Opportunities flow more naturally. Synchronicities increase. What once felt like resistance becomes effortless alignment because your internal frequency has shifted to match the vibration of peace and flow. Ancient mystics understood this principle long before modern science gave it words. They taught that the universe is a reflection of the self. The Hermetic law of correspondence says, as within, so without, as above, so below. The Buddha spoke of karma not as punishment, but as energetic reflection. Whatever you give out, you call back. The Taoists taught the art of wu wei, or effortless action, where one moves in harmony with the natural current of existence rather than forcing outcomes. These ancient teachings mirror what quantum physics now confirms. Reality is not something you control. It's something you align with. Your frequency is your prayer. The thoughts you repeat, the emotions you dwell on, and the beliefs you protect all send instructions to the field about what kind of reality to form around you. If you keep saying, nothing ever works out, the universe has no choice but to fulfill that command because that's the pattern you're feeding. But if you shift your vibration, if you speak, think, and feel as though you are already whole, guided, and abundant, then the field reshapes itself to match that truth. You attract not what you want, but what you are. Letting go, then, is about clearing the interference that blocks your natural signal. It's about removing the static of fear, doubt, and overthinking that distorts your frequency. When you stop chasing and start trusting, your energy expands. You become magnetic, not because you are demanding outcomes, but because you are embodying the energy of someone who already knows everything is unfolding as it should. Imagine two tuning forks in a room. Strike one, and the other begins to vibrate in harmony, even without being touched. This is how the universe works with your consciousness. The frequency you hold inside becomes the tone the universe plays back to you. If you want a higher melody, you must first tune your inner instrument. So ask yourself, what are you broadcasting right now? Are you sending out desperation or faith, resistance or peace? The universe is listening not to your words, but to your vibration. When you let go of what lowers your frequency, you automatically rise. And as you rise, everything around you, your circumstances, your relationships, your opportunities, rises with you. The truth is simple yet profound. The universe doesn't give you what you chase, it gives you what you become. That is why letting go is so powerful. When you release need, you embody completeness. When you release fear, you become courage. When you release doubt, you radiate certainty. And life, being the perfect mirror it is, reflects all of that back to you. You don't need to beg the universe for alignment. You only need to remember that you are part of it. The moment you vibrate in harmony with the energy of peace, gratitude, and surrender, the field rearranges itself instantly, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped resisting it. Letting go is how you tune yourself to the universe's original frequency, love, flow, and infinite possibility. The ego holds, the soul flows. At the core of every human being exists a delicate balance between two forces, the ego and the soul. The ego is the voice of control, fear, and identity. It says, I must hold on to this. I must protect myself. I must prove my worth. The soul, however, speaks in silence. It whispers, let go, you are already enough. You were never meant to control the flow, only to move with it. The ego is like a clenched fist, grasping at everything it believes will keep it safe. The soul is like an open palm, knowing that what is meant to stay will stay, and what is meant to go will go effortlessly, naturally, and perfectly in time. The ego lives in the realm of separation. It defines itself by comparison, me versus you, success versus failure, loss versus gain. It believes survival depends on holding tightly to labels and roles. Your name, your achievements, your relationships, your story. But all of these are illusions created by the mind to anchor itself in a shifting world. The soul, on the other hand, lives in unity. It doesn't see life in fragments, but as one continuous field of energy. The soul doesn't need to control anything because it already feels connected to everything. When you operate from your soul rather than your ego, letting go becomes natural, not a loss, but a return to flow. Think of water. When it flows freely, it nourishes, it cleanses, it adapts. But when it becomes stagnant, when it's held or blocked, it starts to rot. The same happens with energy. The ego, through its need to control, builds dams within your inner rivers. It holds on to grudges, fears, and expectations, preventing the natural flow of life from moving through you. That's why so many people feel stuck, not because life isn't moving, but because they've built barriers against its movement. When you release those barriers, when you trust the flow instead of fearing it, life rushes back in with grace and renewal. The ego holds on to the past because it builds its identity from it. It says, this is who I was, and I cannot lose it. But the soul doesn't care about who you were, it's only concerned with who you are becoming. To the soul, each moment is a birth, a fresh pulse in the infinite rhythm of existence. The soul doesn't cling to memories, because it understands they are just echoes of lessons learned. To grow, you must be willing to die many small deaths, the death of old beliefs, the death of outdated dreams, the death of versions of yourself that no longer serve the higher path you're walking. Letting go is the soul's way of shedding the skin of the old so that the new can emerge. In quantum terms, this is like moving from one energy state to another. When an atom releases energy, it doesn't fight the change. It transitions naturally to a new frequency. You too are made of energy. When you let go, you're not losing, you're shifting. You are freeing up energy that was trapped in fear, resentment, or self-doubt, and allowing it to rise to a higher vibration. The ego calls this loss. The soul calls it evolution. The reason letting go feels so painful is because the ego equates it with death. To the ego, surrender means failure, and change means instability. But from the soul's perspective, letting go is liberation. It's remembering that life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. The more you resist, the more you suffer. The more you trust, the more you align. The ancient mystics understood this deeply. In Sufi wisdom, they called it fana, the dissolving of the self into divine flow. In Taoism, it's the principle of Wu Wei, effortless action born not from control, but from harmony. These teachings all point to one truth. The more you cling, the more you separate yourself from life. The more you surrender, the more you merge with it. Your ego wants to define, possess, and predict. It seeks safety in certainty, but certainty is the opposite of growth. The soul thrives in the unknown. It dances with uncertainty because it knows that the unknown is the birthplace of all creation. Every quantum possibility, every new version of you, exists beyond the borders of what you currently know. To reach it, you must loosen your grip on the familiar. The tighter you hold to what was, the more you block what could be. When you live from ego, your energy feels heavy, always striving, always comparing, always fearing. When you live from soul, your energy feels light, flowing, expanding, trusting. You begin to realize that control was never the goal. The real mastery lies in learning how to flow without fear. You begin to understand that letting go is not an act of giving up, it's an act of allowing. It's about stepping aside so that the intelligence of the universe can move through you without resistance. Imagine a leaf floating down a river. It doesn't argue with the current or fight to choose its direction. It knows the water will carry it exactly where it needs to go. The ego would call that weakness. The soul calls it wisdom. True strength is not in holding on, but in having the courage to trust the flow. When you align with that flow, everything begins to fall into place, not because you forced it, but because you stopped standing in its way. The ego is loud and restless. It seeks attention and control. The soul is quiet and powerful. It seeks truth and balance. When you start listening to the quieter voice, your entire perception changes. You stop needing validation, stop chasing outcomes, and stop fearing endings. You realize that nothing real can ever be lost. The love, the wisdom, the experiences, they all remain as part of your soul's eternal fabric. Only illusions fade. Letting go is not the end of your story, it's the moment your true story begins. When the ego finally releases its grip, the soul rises, weightless and radiant, like light freed from a prism. You begin to live, not as a fragment trying to survive, but as a being remembering its infinite nature. You flow, you create, you trust, and in that flow, you discover what the ego could never understand, that everything you once tried so hard to hold on to was never separate from you in the first place. It was always part of the same divine current, waiting for you to let go and return home to yourself. The quantum field rewards surrender. Everything in the universe moves in cycles, birth and decay, expansion and contraction, rise and fall. Even the smallest atom vibrates in rhythm, and every galaxy spins according to its own divine choreography. Nothing in creation stands still, because stillness without surrender is not peace, it is resistance. The moment you resist the natural flow of change, you step out of harmony with the quantum field, and your energy begins to fragment. But when you surrender, you align with the invisible intelligence that moves planets, grows forests, and breathes life into stars. Surrender is often misunderstood. Many think it means weakness, defeat, or passivity. But in truth, surrender is the highest expression of strength and wisdom. It means understanding that you are not separate from the flow of life. You are that flow. The same consciousness that holds galaxies together is the consciousness that beats your heart. When you stop fighting for control, you allow that universal intelligence to guide you effortlessly. You become a co-creator rather than a controller. In quantum physics, every particle exists in a field of infinite potential until it collapses into one form. But what causes that collapse isn't effort, it's resonance. Things align not through struggle, but through vibration. Just as a planet finds its perfect orbit without force, you find your rightful path when you stop resisting what is. The field doesn't respond to tension, it responds to trust. You can't force a quantum leap, you can only allow it. The act of surrendering releases the friction that keeps you trapped in an old reality, letting your energy flow naturally into a higher one. Imagine an electron moving around its nucleus. It doesn't cling to one orbit forever. It jumps when its energy changes. That jump, that quantum leap, happens in an instant, without effort, without resistance. The electron simply absorbs or releases energy and finds itself in a new state. The same principle applies to your consciousness. When you release emotional weight, when you let go of control and expectation, you free yourself to shift to a new energetic orbit. It happens naturally, beautifully, when you stop fighting the process. The ancient masters understood this truth long before quantum theory gave it words. The Tao Te Ching teaches, when you realize nothing is lacking, the whole world belongs to you. This means that peace doesn't come from controlling outcomes, but from realizing that everything unfolding around you is already part of your evolution. In surrender, you don't lose power, you align with a greater power. You don't give up your will, you sync it with the will of the universe. Every time you try to control what is beyond your reach, whether it's people, outcomes, or timing, you create energetic resistance. The more you push, the more the universe pushes back, not out of cruelty, but to remind you that flow cannot coexist with fear. Surrender, however, creates openness. It's like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. It allows life to move again. The quantum field responds immediately because surrender clears the static between you and the source. Think of the field as a vast ocean of possibilities. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are like ripples across its surface. When you thrash around in fear or try to force the waves to move your way, you create turbulence, distortion. But when you relax, trust, and float, the current carries you exactly where you need to go. Surrender is floating, not sinking, not giving up, but allowing the current of divine intelligence to move you toward what's meant for you. This doesn't mean you stop taking action, it means you stop acting from fear. Surrender transforms action into alignment. You still move, but your movement flows from inspiration rather than desperation. You still dream, but you release the need to control the timing. You still care, but you no longer suffer over outcomes. That's when miracles happen, when your vibration becomes light, and the quantum field mirrors that lightness by rearranging your circumstances effortlessly. There is an ancient Sufi saying, "Trust in Allah, but tie your camel." This captures the perfect balance between surrender and responsibility. You do your part, you take the inspired steps, but then you let go of the rest. You understand that the results are not in your hands, and that's where peace begins. The ego believes it must control every detail to survive. The soul knows that control is an illusion. Everything you think you control could be taken from you in a heartbeat. But what is truly meant for you can never be lost. The moment you surrender, you shift from force to flow. Force is linear, it consumes energy. Flow is exponential, it expands energy. The difference between the two is surrender. When you surrender, you step into synchronicity, where everything begins to align effortlessly. You start noticing small signs, a conversation, a message, an opportunity that feel perfectly timed. That's not coincidence, it's coherence. It's the quantum field responding to your new state of allowance. Pain often arises when you resist what life is trying to teach you. The universe uses discomfort as a language. It whispers through unease, through endings, through things not going according to plan. Most people interpret that as punishment, but it's actually redirection. When things fall apart, it's not life turning against you, it's life clearing the path for your next evolution. Surrender allows you to see this clearly. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this trying to show me?" That single shift in perspective dissolves resistance instantly. True surrender doesn't mean becoming indifferent, it means becoming deeply present. When you surrender, you stop projecting into the future or replaying the past. You start living in this very breath, this moment, this heartbeat, and in that presence, the quantum field aligns with you. The power of creation is never in tomorrow, it's always in now. Science confirms that the quantum field is shaped by observation, emotion, and expectation. So when you surrender emotionally, when you let go of worry and trust that all outcomes are unfolding for your growth, you change the energy you radiate. The universe mirrors that shift with equal grace. It starts sending you situations that match your new vibration of trust. That's why surrender feels so magical. It's not the world suddenly becoming easier, it's your energy becoming lighter. Surrender is the master key to every transformation. You don't have to know every step ahead of you, you just have to trust the one beneath your feet. The field already knows the path, because it is the path. When you finally stop trying to control life, life starts to carry you. So breathe, stop fighting the current, let go of the illusion of control, and remember, even stars are born from collapse. The more you surrender, the more you rise. In the stillness that follows, you'll discover what the sages and physicists both have seen. The universe doesn't reward those who grasp it, rewards those who trust. And in that trust, you will find a peace so complete, it feels like coming home to the rhythm of creation itself. The space between thoughts is where creation begins. There is a place that exists between every thought you think, a silent space, a gap so subtle that most people spend their entire lives without ever entering it consciously. It's the space between your breaths, between your emotions, between one heartbeat and the next. This is the still point, the quantum pause, where everything is possible yet nothing is formed. In the language of quantum physics, it's called the vacuum state, a field of infinite potential where all probabilities exist at once. In the language of ancient mystics, it is the void, the womb of creation, the nothingness that gives birth to everything. To find this space is to find the very source of reality itself. Most people live caught between noise, mental noise, emotional noise, external noise. Their minds jump from thought to thought, like a restless monkey swinging from branch to branch, never touching the ground. In this constant chatter, they miss the sacred silence that lies beneath. The irony is that all true creation, all genuine insight, peace, and transformation arises from that silence, not from the noise. The mind believes it must keep thinking to solve its problems, but the universe doesn't respond to frantic thought. It responds to stillness. It's in the space between your thoughts that the quantum field can finally whisper back. In the quantum world, emptiness is not truly empty. The vacuum, once believed to be void of matter, is now understood to be overflowing with energy, a dynamic sea of possibilities, constantly giving rise to particles and waves. In the same way, the silence within you is not lifeless. It's brimming with potential. When you quiet your mind, you tap into that limitless reservoir of creative energy that exists beyond thought. Every genius idea, every artistic breakthrough, every spiritual awakening emerges from this space. It's not something you think, it's something you receive. The problem is that we've been conditioned to fear emptiness. We fill every pause with distractions, scrolling, talking, planning, worrying, anything to avoid the silence. But that silence is where you meet yourself. When you stop clinging to thought, emotion, and expectation, you begin to perceive the deeper current of awareness beneath them all. That awareness is not bound by time or identity. It doesn't judge or strive, it simply is. It's the infinite consciousness through which everything passes, and it's been waiting for you to notice it. Imagine your mind as a lake. When it's filled with waves, thoughts, emotions, and noise, it reflects nothing clearly. But when it becomes still, it mirrors the sky perfectly. The still lake doesn't have to chase clarity. It only needs to stop being disturbed. The same applies to you. When you let your mind rest, clarity, intuition, and wisdom rise naturally. The universe doesn't need you to think harder. It needs you to be quieter so it can show you the next step. The space between thoughts is not an escape from life. It's where life actually begins. It's the pulse between creation and destruction, the inhale before the exhale, the silence before the first word. Every sound emerges from silence and eventually returns to it. Every form rises from emptiness and dissolves back into it. This rhythm, expansion and return, is the heartbeat of the cosmos. When you learn to rest in that space, you are no longer just living within creation, you are living as creation itself. The mystics knew this deeply. The Buddha called it no mind, the state of pure awareness beyond thought. Lao Tzu referred to it as the Tao, the source of all things that cannot be named. The Sufis spoke of the empty heart, a heart so free of attachment that divine wisdom could pour into it. Even in Christianity, Jesus often withdrew into silence to pray, not to ask, but to listen. Across all traditions, silence was seen not as absence but as presence, the highest form of communication between the human and the divine. You don't have to be a monk on a mountain to access this space. You can find it right here, in the midst of daily life. The next time your mind feels heavy with worry or overthinking, stop and breathe. Feel the pause between your inhale and exhale. That tiny moment, that stillness is the door to infinity. It may last only a second, but within that second exists eternity. The more you return to it, the wider that doorway becomes. Eventually, you'll notice that the silence doesn't disappear. When thoughts arise, it's always there, beneath them, like the sky behind the clouds. When you begin to live from this inner space, everything changes. You stop reacting to life and start responding to it consciously. You realize that you don't need to chase answers, they arrive naturally when you're still enough to receive them. This is the essence of quantum creation, not forcing, but allowing. The universe is always ready to deliver what you're aligned with, but it cannot enter a mind filled with noise. Silence is the invitation. Many of the world's greatest discoveries were born in this gap. Newton's insight about gravity came while he sat silently under a tree. Einstein's theory of relativity revealed itself not through effort, but through a moment of deep, still reflection. Nikola Tesla once said, "The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude." What he meant was that silence amplifies your connection to the universal field of intelligence. When you stop trying to control your thoughts, the infinite intelligence of the cosmos begins to think through you. Letting go of your thoughts doesn't mean suppressing them. It means watching them without attachment, like clouds drifting across a vast sky. Some will be dark, some light, but none of them define the sky itself. You are that sky, spacious, unchanging, limitless. The more you identify with the sky rather than the clouds, the freer you become. And here lies the most beautiful paradox. The less you think, the more you know. The quieter you become, the louder the truth speaks. Because truth doesn't come as words, it comes as understanding. It rises from the depths of silence like a wave from the sea. And once you've touched that stillness, that infinite pause between thoughts, you'll realize that you don't need to create peace. You are peace. The space between thoughts is not something to be found. It's something to remember. It's the original state of your being, calm, radiant, aware. When you live from that space, you stop existing as a separate fragment and begin to live as the universe itself, vast, timeless, and free. Every thought, emotion, and action that flows from this stillness carries the power of creation because it's rooted not in effort, but in truth. So, the next time you find yourself overwhelmed, don't reach for more, reach for less. Breathe, pause, feel the silence that exists before and after each thought. That silence is not empty. It's full of potential, wisdom, and love. It's the birthplace of galaxies, the seed of your highest destiny, and the home your soul has been longing to return to. When you enter that sacred space, you are no longer bound by time or circumstance. You become the observer, the creator, and the field itself. You understand that creation doesn't begin with noise, it begins with stillness. The space between your thoughts is the gateway to the infinite. And once you learn to dwell there, even for a breath, the entire universe begins to move in harmony with your calm. Letting go unlocks the multiverse within you. Somewhere within you, infinite versions of your life are unfolding, countless possibilities, countless yous, each living out a different path. One version of you took that leap of faith, another stayed in fear. One found love and peace early, another is still learning through struggle. Quantum physics calls this the multiverse, a field where every possible timeline exists at once, each vibrating at a slightly different frequency. You are not limited to one fixed reality. You are a living portal between infinite ones. But there's a secret the mystics and scientists both hint at. You cannot enter a higher reality while clinging to a lower one. To shift timelines, you must first let go. Letting go is not a symbolic act, it's a quantum act. Every time you release something, an identity, an old belief, an attachment, you change your vibration. That shift in vibration instantly retunes you to a new frequency of experience. Think of it like tuning a radio. As long as you stay on the old frequency, you'll keep hearing the same static. But the moment you adjust the dial, you catch a new signal. Letting go is how you change the channel of your life. In the quantum field, all realities already exist. There's no such thing as creating from nothing. You're simply aligning with the version of reality that matches your energy. When you hold on to regret, resentment, or fear, you remain anchored in a lower dimensional timeline, one where those emotions define your experience. But when you surrender them, you rise into a parallel version of yourself, a timeline where peace, abundance, and clarity already exist. You don't chase them, you become them. You phase shift into them by frequency. The mystics of old described this process long before modern physics gave it language. In Sufi thought, it was called die before you die, the act of releasing every attachment to your false self so that the soul can awaken to its infinite nature. In Buddhist philosophy, it's the practice of non-clinging, where enlightenment comes not from gaining something new, but from letting go of everything unnecessary. The ancient Hermetic texts echo the same truth. As above, so below, as within, so without. The inner shift is the outer shift. The moment your inner frequency changes, the universe mirrors it instantly. Imagine the infinite possibilities of your life like a vast library. Each book represents a different timeline, a different story of who you could be. Most people spend their entire lives reading and rereading the same few chapters because they're afraid to close the book. Letting go is the act of closing that old story. It doesn't erase it, it honors it. It says, "Thank you for what you taught me. Now I am ready for a new story." When you close that book with peace instead of pain, a librarian far beyond your understanding places a new one in your hands. Every time you resist change, you stay stuck in an old frequency loop. You repeat lessons, meet similar people, face similar challenges, until you learn to release what's holding you. The universe doesn't punish you. It teaches you through repetition. It keeps showing you the same mirror until you realize it's not the world you need to fix. It's your vibration. Letting go breaks the loop. It tells the universe, "I've learned. I'm ready for a new lesson." This is why pain often intensifies right before transformation. The ego senses that its control is slipping, and it clings harder. It will tell you, "Don't change, don't forgive, don't let go." But that resistance is the sign that the doorway is opening. The heavier the pull to stay the same, the closer you are to transcending it. The old timeline is collapsing, and your energy is preparing to jump. Think of how electrons behave in an atom. They orbit in certain energy levels, but they can jump to higher orbits instantly. No ladder, no gradual climb. All they need is a shift in energy. You are made of those same particles. When you let go of bitterness, fear, guilt, you free your energy, and it leaps. You don't crawl into a new life, you quantum jump into it. One moment, everything looks the same. The next, it feels lighter, clearer, more aligned. That's the field responding to your release. You may wonder, if infinite realities exist, why am I stuck in this one? The answer lies in attention. Whatever you give your energy to, you anchor into. If you constantly replay painful memories, you're observing that timeline, and observation sustains it. The moment you stop feeding it attention, it begins to dissolve. This is how letting go literally collapses one quantum possibility and opens another. The universe doesn't decide your path, your consciousness does. Letting go also expands your awareness beyond the linear illusion of time. You realize that past, present, and future are not separate. They coexist in the now. By forgiving the past, you heal your energy across timelines. By releasing fear about the future, you free your consciousness to explore higher realities. Every act of surrender is like cutting invisible strings that tie you to outdated versions of yourself. The lighter you become, the more you can travel through the infinite layers of existence that already surround you. The most profound truth is this: You are not moving through the universe. The universe is moving through you. It reshapes itself according to your level of surrender. The more you trust, the more it expands to match your openness. The more you let go, the more doors you see. It's not that new opportunities suddenly appear. They were always there, hidden behind the fog of attachment. Letting go clears the fog, revealing the vastness that was always yours. When you finally release everything you thought you needed, something miraculous happens. You stop feeling separate from anything. You realize that you are the field, the particle, and the observer. You are the dream and the dreamer. You are the multiverse, experiencing itself through consciousness. And in that realization, fear disappears. Because how can you fear loss when nothing can ever be lost? How can you fear death when every version of you is eternal? So don't be afraid of endings. Don't be afraid of the silence that follows release. That silence is the sound of new worlds forming. The moment you let go, truly let go, you become a bridge between timelines, a traveler between dimensions of being. The universe rewards your courage by revealing what was always hidden. You are infinite, and there are endless versions of joy, wisdom, and love waiting for you to align with them. To let go is to open your hands to infinity. It is to remember that the universe is not outside of you. It is within you, unfolding, shimmering, expanding with every breath you take. You are the multiverse awakening to itself. And every time you release, you rise into a version of life that feels a little freer, a little lighter, a little more divine. Freedom is your natural state. From the beginning of existence, everything in the universe has been moving toward freedom. Stars explode to release their light. Rivers carve their way through rock to reach the ocean, and every seed breaks through the soil to touch the sky. Freedom is not something the universe occasionally grants, it is its default rhythm. The same law governs your soul. You were never meant to live trapped in fear, attachment, or control. You were meant to move, to expand, to flow. The entire process of letting go, everything you've learned so far, leads to this single truth. Freedom is your natural state. But somewhere along the journey, most of us forget this truth. From the moment we're born, society teaches us to hold on to approval, hold on to possessions, hold on to beliefs, identities, routines, and titles. We build walls around our hearts and call them safety. We cling to our past and call it loyalty. We hold on to pain and call it memory. Yet, with every attachment, we move further away from our true nature, which is pure, spacious awareness. Just like a bird who forgets how to fly because it spent too long in a cage, we forget that the door has been open all along. To be free doesn't mean to abandon life or detach coldly from it. It means to love fully, live deeply, but without fear of loss. Freedom is not the absence of connection. It is the absence of possession. It is the ability to experience everything, joy, pain, success, failure, without being enslaved by any of it. The sages of every tradition understood this. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. Lao Tzu wrote that those who flow with life do not cling to outcomes. The Stoics said that peace belongs only to those who accept what they cannot control. All these teachings point to the same understanding. The more you let go, the freer you become. In quantum terms, freedom is the ability of consciousness to move without resistance through the field of possibilities. When you cling to fear, shame, or expectation, you narrow your energetic vibration to a limited range. You anchor yourself to one narrow version of reality. But when you release those dense emotions, your frequency expands. You start vibrating in harmony with the infinite field. The universe no longer appears as a set of obstacles, but as an open field of opportunity. The boundaries dissolve, and suddenly, life feels fluid again, spontaneous, synchronistic, alive. Freedom also means realizing that you are not the roles you play. You are not the body, the name, or the story. You are the awareness that observes all of it. The same consciousness that witnessed the birth of galaxies is the same consciousness watching your life unfold right now. You were never the waves. You were always the ocean. And the ocean, by nature, cannot be bound. Every label you've ever used, son, daughter, worker, dreamer, sinner, saint, is just a costume the soul wears for a time. The more you identify with the costume, the heavier life becomes. The moment you take it off and see yourself as the vast awareness behind it all, you rediscover the lightness that was always there. The ego doesn't understand this kind of freedom. To the ego, freedom means control, the power to manipulate, dominate, or escape discomfort. But true freedom is not control, it is release. It's the deep knowing that you don't need to control anything to be at peace. Life is not a cage you must escape. It's a current you can learn to float within. When you stop demanding that life obey your preferences, you begin to see that everything that happens, even the things you once called bad, are simply waves in a much greater ocean of becoming. Think about how much energy humans spend trying to maintain illusions. We fight to protect our images, our status, our possessions, as if any of it could truly define us. But time eventually strips all of it away. Every life ends the same way, empty-handed. Yet that emptiness is not a tragedy. It's liberation. It's the soul returning to its natural weightlessness. To live freely is to experience that liberation now, while still alive, to realize that nothing truly belongs to you, and therefore nothing can truly be taken away. In the quantum field, energy is never lost, it only changes form. When something leaves your life, it doesn't vanish, it transforms. The love you gave doesn't die when a relationship ends. The lessons you learned don't disappear when a chapter closes. Every experience you've ever had still lives within the greater field of your being. Letting go doesn't erase your history, it integrates it. It transforms every scar into light, every ending into space for something new to emerge. Freedom also means forgiveness, not because others deserve it, but because you do. Holding on to resentment binds you to the past, replaying the same emotional frequency over and over. When you forgive, you reclaim that energy. You stop identifying as the wounded self and start resonating as the healed one. Forgiveness is the soul remembering its natural state of openness. It's how you break the invisible chains that keep you looping through old realities. The beauty of freedom is that it doesn't depend on circumstances. You could lose everything tomorrow, your job, your home, your possessions, and still be free if your heart remains unattached. History is filled with examples of people who were physically confined yet spiritually boundless, mystics imprisoned yet enlightened, poets exiled yet inspired, prophets persecuted yet at peace. The body can be restrained, but consciousness cannot. Once you realize this, fear loses its grip completely. Freedom is also the key to creativity. Every great artist, thinker, or inventor entered this state before creating something extraordinary. They stepped beyond rigid thinking and surrendered to the unknown. In that surrender, inspiration flowed. The same intelligence that spins planets began to move through them. You, too, can live this way, not as a thinker trapped in your own thoughts, but as a channel through which the universe expresses itself. To be free is to become a vessel for creation itself. Yet, freedom requires courage. It asks you to walk away from certainty, to dissolve the walls you built around your heart, and to stop defining yourself by what you own, believe, or achieve. It asks you to trust that even when you have nothing, you are everything, and in that trust, something miraculous happens. The universe begins to support you effortlessly. Synchronicities appear. The right people arrive. The right opportunities unfold. Life stops being a series of battles and becomes a dance. True freedom is not isolation from life, but intimacy with it. When you are free inside, you can finally meet the world without fear. You can love deeply without needing to possess. You can give without expectation. You can face endings without despair. You can sit in silence and feel full. You begin to see that every experience, even pain, is sacred because it all belongs to the same cosmic unfolding. You no longer label things as good or bad. You simply see them as necessary. And then something profound shifts. The line between you and the universe disappears. You no longer feel like a person walking through the world. You feel like the world walking through itself. The wind, the rain, the stars, your breath, all of it becomes one seamless motion. You are no longer the observer of life, but life itself, aware of its own beauty. That is what it means to be free. So, ask yourself now, what are you still holding on to? A story, a regret, a version of yourself that no longer fits. Every moment you cling, you reinforce your cage. Every moment you let go, you break another bar of it. The path to freedom doesn't require more effort, it requires less resistance. Freedom is not something you have to earn, it's something you uncover by releasing everything that hides it. When you finally reach that point of surrender, a strange calm takes over. You realize that you never had control, and yet everything is perfectly in control. You stop chasing, you stop grasping, and you simply are. That being is the purest form of existence, the awareness that watches the entire play of life unfold, untouched and unshaken. You were never born to be confined by fear or defined by what happens to you. You were born to remember what the universe has known all along, that freedom is not the destination, it's your essence. Every breath you take, every release, every act of trust brings you closer to what you already are. And in that realization, something extraordinary happens. You stop searching for freedom in the world outside and discover that the world itself was always inside you. You see that you were never meant to find peace, you were meant to remember it. Freedom was never lost. It was simply waiting for you to open your hands, to let go, and to return home to the infinite stillness from which all creation arises. Because in the end, when all attachments fade, when every illusion dissolves, what remains is not emptiness, it's everything. It's love without fear, joy without reason, existence without limit. That is the freedom you've been searching for. That is the truth of who you are. The quantum shift only happens when you finally let go. The universe has always spoken in whispers, in the rustle of leaves, in the breath between thoughts, in the stillness that appears when you finally stop trying to control everything. That stillness is the threshold between the old and the new. It's the moment when all your resistance collapses and the field of infinite possibility opens before you. This is what many call the quantum shift, a leap from one level of consciousness to another, from one version of reality to the next. It's not a change you chase, it's a change you allow. And it only begins the moment you let go. Letting go is not a simple act, it's a sacred one. It's the dismantling of everything false that you've built around your true self. It's the release of old timelines, beliefs, fears, and attachments that no longer vibrate with your evolution. The quantum field, that invisible web of energy connecting everything, it cannot give you what you're asking for while you're still clutching the energy of what you no longer need. You can't hold on to the past and step into the future at the same time. You cannot ascend while carrying the weight of everything you refuse to release. The reason this shift feels so difficult is because the ego equates letting go with death. And in a way, it's right. Something does die, but it's not you. It's the outdated version of you, the one built from fear, from limitation, from false control. The ego resists the unknown because it thrives in familiarity. It would rather live in a prison it understands than enter a freedom it cannot predict. Yet, freedom demands surrender. Every spiritual tradition, every quantum truth points to this paradox. Only when you release your need to control reality can you finally reshape it. The quantum shift doesn't happen in the noise of effort, it happens in the silence of surrender. Think of an electron in an atom. It doesn't climb from one orbit to another through struggle. It simply absorbs energy and, in an instant, disappears from one level and reappears in another. The transition is instantaneous. The same is true for you. When you let go, when you fully release your emotional density, your vibration rises in an instant. You don't evolve gradually, you jump. This is why breakthroughs often feel sudden, even after years of struggle. The preparation happens slowly, but the shift itself is quantum, immediate, irreversible, transformative. The letting go that creates this shift happens on every level of being. On the physical level, it means relaxing your grip on tension, releasing the tightness in your body that reflects the resistance in your mind. On the emotional level, it means allowing yourself to feel deeply without judgment, to let pain move through you rather than trying to suppress or fix it. On the mental level, It means questioning every belief that keeps you small, every "I can't", every "I'm not enough", every "I need control to be safe". When these layers of resistance fall away, what remains is the pure awareness that you've always been the observer behind the thoughts, the silence behind the sound. And it's from that state of pure awareness that the quantum shift unfolds. Most people try to create from their old selves, from their conditioned mind. They visualize and affirm, but underneath, they're still attached to fear, still vibrating at the frequency of lack. The universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to vibration. You cannot fake surrender. You cannot trick the quantum field into giving you what you want if your energy still clings to what you fear. Letting go is not about pretending to be at peace, it's about truly feeling peace, even without guarantees. It's about trusting the unseen order of existence more than your limited perception. Ancient wisdom echoes this truth in countless ways. The Tao Te Ching says, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." In Sufism, they call it fana, the dissolving of the self, the merging with divine flow. In Buddhism, it's the art of non-attachment. All of them point to the same reality. The doorway to transformation is not found in control, but in surrender. You cannot step into the infinite while clinging to the finite. You cannot open your hands to receive while they're still closed in resistance. Letting go also means accepting uncertainty as your new home. The ego wants security, fixed answers, predictable outcomes. But the quantum field is made of uncertainty. It's a realm of infinite potential, where everything exists as possibility until you observe it into being. When you can make peace with uncertainty, you enter alignment with the field itself. You stop demanding that life reveal its entire plan before you move forward. Instead, you trust that each step will appear exactly when it's time. This kind of trust is not naive, it's scientific. In quantum physics, particles only reveal their position when observed. Until then, they exist in a state of probability. The universe literally responds to consciousness. So when your consciousness relaxes, when it releases attachment and fear, the field collapses into harmony with that vibration. What you call miracles are simply the natural reflections of a surrendered mind. But here's what most people miss. The quantum shift doesn't just change your outer circumstances, it rewires your perception. You don't just experience a new reality, you become a new observer. And since the observer defines the observed, your entire universe transforms. You stop seeing chaos and start seeing pattern. You stop seeing endings and start seeing openings. You stop seeing time as linear and start experiencing it as a vast present moment unfolding in every direction. There's a sacred stillness that follows true letting go, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of vastness. You begin to feel something you hadn't felt before. Lightness. Not just emotional lightness, but energetic lightness. The kind that comes when the gravitational pull of your old identity finally releases you. You no longer feel like you're swimming against the current of life. You become the current itself. Things that once felt impossible now flow effortlessly. The right people appear, the right opportunities arrive. And when they do, they don't feel like surprises, they feel like home. This is the secret behind the quantum shift. You don't attract what you want, you become what you're ready for. The moment you let go of resistance, you begin to vibrate in harmony with your higher reality. It's not about reaching upward, it's about shedding downward, releasing everything dense, fearful, and false. That's why the greatest teachers spoke of enlightenment not as gaining more knowledge, but as removing the obstacles to truth. The light of awareness has always been there, it was only hidden behind the fog of attachment. Sometimes, before this shift happens, life begins to fall apart. People leave, plans crumble, dreams end. It feels like punishment, but it's preparation. The universe is stripping away what cannot come with you to the next level of your vibration. Every ending is a purification, a clearing of energetic space for what's to come. Pain, therefore, is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that the old frequency is breaking apart. The more you resist it, the longer it hurts. The more you allow it, the faster you rise. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning your desires, it means aligning them with your higher path. You still dream, but your dreams are no longer rooted in fear. You still take action, but your actions flow from intuition, not anxiety. You stop grasping and start trusting. You stop demanding and start aligning. The more you let go, the more you feel guided, not by logic, but by resonance. Life begins to communicate through subtle impulses, synchronicities, and inner knowing. The field itself becomes your compass. At its highest level, letting go becomes love, because love, in its purest form, has no possession, no demand, no resistance. It is complete acceptance of what is. When you let go, you are not losing. You are returning to love, to the original vibration of creation. That's why surrender feels so peaceful. It's not the end of something, it's the reunion with everything. If you look closely, every great transformation in nature happens through surrender. A caterpillar dissolves into nothing before becoming a butterfly. A seed breaks open before it grows. Even a star must collapse before it explodes into light. The pattern is universal. Only by letting go can something higher emerge. The same is true for you. You are both the star and the light it releases. The quantum shift, then, is not an external event, it's an internal awakening. It happens the moment you stop struggling with life and start flowing with it. You stop being the one trying to control the universe and become the universe remembering itself through you. That remembrance, that awakening is the ultimate freedom. So take a breath. Feel the weight you've been carrying, the expectations, the fears, the past. Recognize that they are not chains placed upon you by fate. They are threads you've been holding on to out of habit. And with one simple act of awareness, you can release them. You can let the thread go. In that release, the world doesn't fall apart, it falls into place. Because the quantum shift is not about becoming more, it's about becoming less. Less attached, less fearful, less separate. And as you become less, you make room for everything infinite to flow through you. When you finally let go, life doesn't end, it begins again. Not as it was, but as it's always meant to be. A dance between energy and awareness, love and motion, form and formlessness. You realize that everything you ever sought was never outside you. The field, the light, the divine, it's all within, waiting for you to open your hands. And in that sacred moment of surrender, when you truly let go of control, you don't fall into the void, you rise into the infinite. You cross the threshold of time and enter the eternal now, where all versions of you merge into one free, boundless, luminous. That is the quantum shift. That is awakening. That is the miracle that happens the instant you finally, completely, and fearlessly let go. The universe remembers you when you let go. Every particle of this universe is in motion, vibrating, oscillating, flowing with purpose. Even the stars that appear still are dancing in invisible rhythms, bound to an order we can't see but can somehow feel. You too are part of that rhythm. You were never separate from the cosmic flow that moves galaxies, tides, and time itself. But as humans, we often forget. We grip tightly to identities, fears, and expectations. We fight against the current instead of trusting it, and that resistance keeps us small, trapped within the boundaries of what we already know. Yet the moment you let go, something profound happens. The universe begins to remember you. Letting go doesn't erase who you are. It allows the higher version of you, the one waiting in silence, to emerge. It's like peeling away layers of dust from a mirror until your reflection shines again. The universe doesn't create you anew when you surrender. It simply reveals what you've always been, a divine fragment of infinite awareness. Every time you release something that's not truly you, you vibrate closer to that remembrance. That's what spiritual awakening really means, not becoming more, but remembering more deeply. When you hold on too tightly to the past, you trap your energy in timelines that no longer exist. You keep looping through the same emotional patterns, meeting the same kinds of people, facing the same lessons, all because your consciousness is still orbiting the same point of attachment. It's not that the universe is punishing you, it's trying to set you free. It's saying, you've already learned this, now let's move higher. But the ego fears the unknown and clings to the familiar pain. And so, life repeats itself until surrender happens. Quantum physics mirrors this truth beautifully. In the quantum field, infinite versions of reality exist simultaneously. Every potential future you can imagine is already real in the field of possibility. But to align with a new one, you must release the vibration of the old. You can't access a higher frequency while tuning your heart to fear, guilt, or regret. The moment you let go of what lowers your vibration, you shift into resonance with a new timeline, one where love, peace, and purpose flow more easily. Letting go is not an act of abandonment, it's an act of alignment. You're not walking away from life, you're walking into truth. You're saying to the universe, I trust you more than my limited understanding. That trust is the key that unlocks the next chapter of your evolution. Every great transformation in your life began not when you gained something new, but when you released something old, an idea, a belief, a version of yourself that could no longer travel with you. Think of a hot air balloon tied to the ground by ropes. No matter how powerful the flame inside burns, it cannot rise until the ropes are cut. Those ropes are your attachments, the fears, identities, and illusions that weigh you down. The moment you start cutting them, your energy begins to ascend naturally. You don't have to force the rise. The lightness of your being takes care of it. The higher you go, the clearer the view becomes. What once looked like chaos now reveals itself as perfect geometry, a design woven by something far wiser than you. This is the beauty of letting go. It doesn't destroy order, it restores it. When you stop trying to control life, you realize life has always been guiding you. Every detour, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer, all of it was part of a larger harmony. You were never off the path. You were learning how to walk with grace. The universe cannot move through you when you are rigid, but the moment you soften, its intelligence begins to flow. There's a sacred humility in surrender. You stop pretending to know what's best and allow the higher order of things to show you. The mystics called this state trusting the unseen hand. Science calls it coherence, when your heart and mind align with the rhythm of creation. In this state, the universe doesn't just respond to you, it moves with you. You stop manifesting from the ego and start creating from essence. Life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a conversation, one where every experience, even pain, is a message of love. Many people fear letting go because they mistake it for loss. But what if loss is only the shedding of illusion? What if every time you lose something, it's the universe whispering, you no longer need this weight? Look back on your life. Every time you thought something was ending, something else was beginning. The heartbreak that broke you open also made you deeper. The disappointment that crushed your plans also redirected your purpose. The silence that scared you was the soil where wisdom grew. You never truly lose in surrender. You trade what's temporary for what's eternal. In the process of letting go, your energy begins to purify. Old frequencies dissolve. You stop vibrating in fear and start resonating in peace. This is the moment when miracles appear, not because you begged for them, but because you became aligned with them. The quantum field is always abundant, always responsive, always ready. It's your resistance that blocks its flow. The instant you release control, you reconnect with that abundance. You become magnetic, not by trying to attract, but by allowing. Letting go also heals your relationship with time. When you're attached, you live either in the past or the future, regretting what was or fearing what will be. But surrender roots you in the present, which is where all creation happens. In the eternal now, there is no loss, no waiting, no separation. Everything you seek already exists here. The more you rest in this awareness, the more reality begins to rearrange itself around your calm. Freedom, peace, and alignment are not distant rewards. They are natural consequences of surrender. The act of letting go is how the universe breathes through you again. Imagine holding your breath for too long. Your chest tightens, your vision blurs, your body strains. Then, when you finally exhale, everything relaxes. That exhale is letting go. It's the soul's sigh of relief, the return to its original rhythm. The deeper you go into this process, the more you realize that letting go isn't something you do once, it's a way of living. Every day, the universe asks you, can you trust me with this too? Can you let go of how others see you? Can you let go of your need to be right? Can you let go of the fear that things won't work out? Each time you say yes, your vibration rises a little higher. Each yes opens another door. Eventually, there comes a moment when you let go so completely that the line between you and the universe dissolves. You stop asking for signs because you are the sign. You stop chasing meaning because you are the meaning. You realize that life is not something happening to you, it's something happening through you. The drop finally remembers it is the ocean, and in that remembrance, all striving ends. You no longer need to manifest, you only need to be. You no longer need to seek love, you recognize you are made of it. You no longer fear endings because you see that everything that ends only returns to its true form, energy, eternal and free. The soul doesn't cling to anything because it knows it can never lose. So breathe deeply and allow. Let go of the weight of control, the fear of uncertainty, the illusion of separation. Let go of needing to know how things will unfold. The field already knows. The same intelligence that turns stars into galaxies knows how to unfold your path. Trust it, align with it, flow with it. You don't need to force your evolution, you only need to stop resisting it. The moment you surrender, you step into harmony with the grand design. The currents that once felt chaotic become graceful. The unknown becomes beautiful. The universe, vast, infinite, alive, begins to move through you, not as an external force, but as your own deepest essence. Because the truth is this, you were never meant to carry it all. You were meant to let it all move through you. Life, love, loss, joy, none of it belongs to you, and yet all of it is you. When you finally understand this, when you let go without fear or condition, you don't fall into emptiness, you fall into infinity. That is the moment the quantum shift becomes complete. That is the moment the universe remembers you because you finally remembered yourself. The power of returning to stillness. There comes a time in every seeker's journey when words no longer comfort, when action no longer satisfies, when even thought itself begins to feel heavy, and that's when the invitation to stillness appears. This stillness is not laziness or escape. It is the most profound movement of all. It is the quantum pause before creation, the silence before the Big Bang, the breath before all beginnings. To return to stillness is to return to the source, to the field where everything exists in potential form, waiting for the observer's awareness to awaken it. The deeper you go into this life, the more you realize that everything you chase outside yourself is a reflection of something within. You search for peace in success, love in others, freedom in possessions, but they all dissolve sooner or later. And when they do, you are left with the same silence you've been avoiding. But here's the paradox. That silence you fear is the very thing you've been searching for. Stillness isn't the absence of life. It is the pulse of it. Beneath the noise of thoughts and emotions, beneath the endless motion of the physical world, stillness hums like a soft vibration holding everything together. The quantum field itself is silent. It moves without sound, yet from it comes every sound that has ever existed. When you learn to rest in that stillness, you stop being a victim of life's chaos and become its conductor, because in stillness, awareness expands. In noise, perception narrows. That's why so many people feel lost. They are constantly thinking, talking, planning, reacting, but rarely listening. The universe is always speaking, but its voice is subtle. It can only be heard in silence. Ancient masters knew this truth. The Zen monks sat in meditation not to escape life, but to merge with it completely. The Sufis spun in trance not to lose control, but to find divine rhythm. The Taoists walked through nature not to be idle, but to sync with the effortless unfolding of existence. Each of them understood that the deepest power does not come from force, but from stillness. In quantum physics, this stillness can be compared to the vacuum energy, the so-called nothing that fills space. But this nothing is not empty. It's the womb of creation. Every particle that ever existed emerges from it and eventually returns to it. You, too, are born from this stillness and will return to it, not just at the end of life, but many times within it. Every time you surrender, every time you stop resisting, every time you exhale deeply and feel peace, even for a moment. That pause between one breath and the next, that's where you meet God, the universe, or whatever you choose to call the infinite. Stillness is not achieved by running away from life's noise. It's found in the middle of it. It's the calm at the center of the storm. The world can roar around you, yet inside, there is an unshakable peace. That peace is not indifference, it's understanding. You see that every event, every emotion, every chaos is just a ripple on the surface of the vast ocean of being. You stop reacting to the waves because you've remembered you are the ocean. Returning to stillness is the final step in the art of letting go, because only in stillness can true release happen. You can't force yourself to let go through willpower. The mind is too clever for that. It will pretend to surrender while still clinging underneath. But when you become still, something deeper takes over. Awareness itself begins to dissolve the tension. Like frost melting under sunlight, your attachments, fears, and illusions begin to fade. You don't have to push them away. You simply stop feeding them with attention. Think of a muddy river. If you keep stirring it, the water remains cloudy. But if you let it rest, gravity pulls the sediment down, and the water clears by itself. The same happens in your mind. Every time you chase thoughts, analyze emotions, or fight your circumstances, you stir the mud. When you become still, clarity returns on its own. The mind purifies itself not through effort, but through stillness. This stillness is also where time begins to lose its grip. In the ordinary state of consciousness, you're always jumping between past and future, regretting one, fearing the other. But in stillness, there is only now. And now is not a single moment. It's eternity condensed into awareness. Time exists only when you resist what is. When you accept everything, time dissolves, and you feel the eternal presence that the mystics call enlightenment. The most extraordinary part is that this stillness is always here. You don't have to travel to a mountain or meditate for years to find it. It's behind every thought, underneath every heartbeat. It's in the moment you stop trying. Even now, as you read this, there is a background silence holding each word. That silence is you, the real you, untouched by circumstance, unshaken by change. When you reconnect with that awareness, the world doesn't disappear. It becomes more vivid. Colors seem brighter, sounds more melodic, faces more beautiful. This is because stillness heightens perception. You stop living in your mind's filtered version of reality and start experiencing reality directly. Life stops being something you think about and becomes something you feel. In this stillness, creation becomes effortless. The mind, when quiet, becomes a perfect mirror for the quantum field. Ideas, insights, and synchronicities flow through you naturally. You no longer have to manifest by force, because your vibration already matches the frequency of what you desire. The field responds instantly to coherence, and coherence comes from inner peace. You become a living magnet, not because you demand, but because you resonate. But make no mistake, stillness does not mean withdrawal from the world. It doesn't mean silence in speech or inactivity in body. You can be deeply still even while creating, working, loving, or speaking. True stillness is inner spaciousness, a lack of resistance. It's the ability to move without tension, to act without fear, to love without attachment. You begin to live from the inside out rather than the outside in. The outer world becomes a reflection of your inner peace rather than a source of your inner turmoil. When you live this way, life begins to dance with you. Obstacles turn into lessons. Loss turns into redirection. Every experience becomes sacred because it all serves the same purpose, to return you to awareness. You no longer see the universe as random or cruel. You see it as intelligent, compassionate, and endlessly creative. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone is enough to change everything. Returning to stillness also means accepting that some questions will never have answers, and that's okay. The mind thrives on certainty, but the soul thrives on wonder. When you let go of needing to know, you make room for awe. You begin to see mystery not as something to fear, but as something to fall in love with. You realize that the purpose of life was never to understand it completely, but to experience it fully. And so, you breathe, you sit, you allow, you let every moment unfold exactly as it must. You stop chasing meaning and start resting in being. That's when the universe reveals its deepest secret. Everything you've ever desired, peace, love, freedom, was never outside you. It was always in the stillness that lives beneath your thoughts. Stillness is the final teacher. It asks for nothing but your presence, and in return, it gives you everything: clarity, strength, compassion, and connection. It transforms your mind into a clear lens through which the divine can see itself. You no longer feel like a separate being looking for answers. You feel like consciousness experiencing itself in endless forms. When you live from stillness, even death loses its terror, because you've already touched eternity. You understand that nothing real can ever be destroyed, only transformed. The body may fade, memories may vanish, but awareness remains, vast and luminous, beyond time and space. The entire universe is an expression of stillness moving. Every wave of sound, every heartbeat, every flicker of starlight, all of it emerges from and returns to silence. And so will you. Every journey, every struggle, every triumph, eventually leads back to that same quiet center. That is the alpha and omega of existence, the eternal home we keep leaving and rediscovering. So, stop searching for peace outside of yourself. Stop waiting for the world to calm down before you rest. Sit quietly and listen. Feel the stillness that has always been here, beneath your thoughts, beneath your heartbeat. Let it remind you that you were never lost, never incomplete, never separate. You were always the still point in the turning universe, the eye of the cosmic storm, the witness of all creation. This is the ultimate quantum realization, that awareness itself is the source of all worlds. The observer and the observed are one. When you rest in stillness, you return to that oneness. You stop being a fragment, trying to fix the whole and become the whole, expressing itself through a fragment. And in that return, in that deep, quiet surrender, the journey ends. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to seek, only the vast, endless now, the infinite stillness where it all began and where it all forever remains. You become infinite when you stop trying to be someone. There comes a moment on the spiritual journey when you realize that the person you've been trying so hard to become never really existed. Every image, every ambition, every self-description, successful, spiritual, good enough, strong, healed, was only a mask built to survive in a world that taught you to earn your worth. From childhood, you were trained to perform, to be something, to prove something, to achieve something. You were taught that meaning comes from identity, and that identity comes from comparison. But all along, there was a deeper truth whispering beneath the noise. You were already infinite before you ever became anyone. The quantum field, the vast sea of potential energy that underlies all existence, does not recognize someone. It recognizes vibration, frequency, consciousness. It does not respond to your title, your appearance, or your reputation. It responds to your state of being. The more tightly you hold onto a constructed identity, the more you limit your vibration to that narrow frequency. And the more you let go of who you think you are, the more you dissolve into the field itself. That is where true power lies, not in becoming more, but in becoming less. Becoming less doesn't mean losing your personality or passions. It means losing the illusion that they define you. It means realizing that everything you call me, your thoughts, emotions, and even your body is constantly changing, like waves in the ocean. The real you is not the wave, it's the ocean itself, vast, formless, and eternally still beneath the surface. When you identify as the wave, life feels like struggle. You compete, compare, and cling because you believe your existence depends on standing taller than other waves. But when you awaken as the ocean, there's no competition, no anxiety, no need to prove. You realize every wave rises and falls in perfect timing, and all are part of the same water. Letting go of identity can feel terrifying at first. The ego will resist with everything it has because its survival depends on maintaining the illusion of separateness. It will whisper, "If I stop being me, I'll disappear." But the opposite is true. When you stop clinging to the false self, you don't vanish, you expand. You discover the boundless consciousness that has been observing your entire life like a witness behind the screen. That consciousness, pure awareness, has no name, no form, no beginning, and no end. It is infinite. And when you realize you are that, you stop living as a fragment, trying to become whole, and start living as wholeness, expressing itself through a fragment. In quantum physics, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. Likewise, the real you has never been born and will never die. The body and mind are forms, temporary expressions of the infinite consciousness that animates them. You've changed forms countless times as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. But the awareness that witnessed those changes never changed. That is who you truly are. To recognize this is to step into freedom so vast it feels like silence. You stop saying, "I am this or that," and simply rest in the knowing, "I am." When you live from this awareness, the entire meaning of life transforms. Success no longer looks like climbing ladders or collecting validation. Success becomes alignment, the harmony between your actions and the truth of your being. You start to move with life rather than against it. You don't chase purpose anymore. You radiate it naturally. Just as the sun doesn't try to shine, you don't try to be good or spiritual or worthy. You just are. This is what the ancient mystics meant when they said, "Die before you die." They weren't speaking of physical death, but of the death of identification, the letting go of the small self so the infinite can emerge. When the false self dies, life begins anew. It's the same paradox that nature reveals over and over. The seed must dissolve for the tree to grow. The wave must crash for the ocean to reveal itself. What looks like death is always transformation. Imagine your identity as a costume you've been wearing on the stage of existence. You've played roles: student, parent, friend, believer, achiever, but beneath them all, the actor remains untouched. The moment you remove the costume, you don't lose anything real. You uncover what was hidden. You realize that awareness, your true self, is not limited to this one life or this one form. You've existed as light, as energy, as thought, as silence. You are the consciousness that experiences creation through endless faces. Letting go of the need to be someone also frees you from suffering. Most pain arises from resisting what is. You feel hurt when reality doesn't match the story you tell about yourself. "I'm not supposed to fail. I'm supposed to be loved by them. I'm supposed to have more by now." These thoughts are just the ego defending its script. The moment you let go of the story, pain dissolves. You see that nothing in life is personal. The universe is not punishing or rewarding you. It's reflecting you. Everything you experience is a mirror, showing you where you still identify with limitation. In that realization, judgment fades. How could you judge another when you see that they too are waves in the same ocean? Every person is a mirror of the same consciousness, exploring itself in infinite forms. The saint and the sinner, the teacher and the student, all are expressions of the same divine source. Compassion becomes natural because separation no longer makes sense. Love stops being an emotion and becomes your state of being. This is the true quantum awakening, when you stop trying to manipulate the field and instead realize you are the field. You no longer say, "I am manifesting my reality." You understand, reality is manifesting through me. The observer and the observed become one. Every experience, pleasant or painful, becomes sacred because it's all part of the infinite intelligence revealing itself through your awareness. When you release the idea of being someone, you don't lose direction, you gain flow. The universe begins to move through you effortlessly because there's no resistance left. Inspiration replaces discipline. Synchronicity replaces struggle. Instead of forcing outcomes, you attract them through coherence. You begin to see patterns forming in perfect timing, the right person calling, the right opportunity appearing, the right words arriving. It's not magic, it's resonance. The quantum field simply mirrors the purity of your being. In stillness, when identity dissolves, you also discover the profound peace of being enough. Not enough because of what you do or achieve, but enough because existence itself lives through you. You stop seeking completion in external things because you remember that you are the source from which all things arise. That's why enlightenment feels so light. It's the absence of all the heaviness you carried trying to be someone. You can still play your human roles, work, love, create, but now you do it from freedom, not fear. You wear your identity lightly, like clothing you can remove at any moment. You can be strong without pretending, kind without performing, silent without withdrawing. You begin to live authentically because there's nothing left to defend. In this state, life becomes both incredibly simple and deeply profound. You realize that everything is energy moving in patterns, and your consciousness is the screen on which those patterns dance. There is nothing to fix, nothing to control. Even what you once called mistakes are seen as perfect brushstrokes in the painting of your evolution. You stop asking, "What do I want to be?" and start asking, "What is life expressing through me right now?" That shift is liberation. When you stop trying to be someone, you discover what it means to be everything. You become fluid, like light moving through water, adapting, reflecting, illuminating. You stop fearing death because you recognize that you've never truly been born, you've only been manifesting as form. And when the form fades, the light remains. The journey of letting go of identity is not about reaching heaven, it's about realizing you never left it. Heaven is not a place, but a state of awareness, where nothing needs to be added or removed. It's the recognition that every atom, every sound, every breath is divine. You are not a soul seeking God, you are God seeking itself through experience. So stop trying to perfect the mask. Stop polishing the mirror. Sit quietly and look beyond the reflection. Feel the vastness that watches, the presence that observes. That's who you are. You were infinite before your first breath, and you will be infinite long after your last. When you truly understand this, you live differently. You speak less but mean more. You love without fear because you know love can't be lost. You create without attachment because creation is your nature. And you finally realize that enlightenment was never about ascending to another world. It was about remembering the one you already inhabit, the one made of consciousness, energy, and boundless light. In the end, all paths, scientific, spiritual, emotional, lead to this same realization. You are not a being within the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself as a being. The moment you stop trying to be someone, the walls of separation collapse. You dissolve into the infinite, and the infinite breathes through you. And in that eternal breath, that vast, sacred stillness, you understand the ultimate truth. You never had to become anything to be everything. Every sunrise, every blooming flower, every heartbeat in your chest is the universe expanding, not just outward into space, but inward into awareness. You are not a separate spectator watching the cosmos unfold. You are the unfolding itself. Yet most people live as if they're cut off from this vast intelligence, struggling against the current of life, mistaking surrender for defeat. But surrender is not giving up. It is opening up. It is the highest form of participation in the cosmic dance. When you surrender, you don't step away from life. You step into its rhythm. The universe expands through that rhythm, through your willingness to let go and be carried. We are conditioned to believe that control equals safety. We think if we can plan enough, think enough, hold tight enough, we can avoid loss and pain. But control is an illusion, a story told by the frightened mind. Look at the stars, look at the seasons, look at your own breath. None of them are controlled, they are guided. Every cell in your body functions in perfect harmony without your conscious management. The same intelligence that keeps planets in orbit and atoms spinning is the same intelligence that beats your heart. When you surrender, you return to alignment with that intelligence. You remember that life has always known what it's doing. Quantum physics tells us that reality responds not to force, but to observation, to awareness. When you try to control, you narrow your awareness to a single possibility and cut yourself off from the infinite field of potential that surrounds you. But when you let go, when you release attachment to one outcome, the field opens. You become receptive. You allow the wave of possibility to collapse in the direction of harmony. Surrender doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. You stop scattering your energy through fear and focus it through faith. Surrender is not weakness. It's the ultimate act of trust, the kind of trust the universe has in itself. A seed doesn't struggle to become a tree. It trusts the soil, the sun, and the rain. A river doesn't force its flow. It surrenders to gravity, and yet it carves valleys, nourishes forests, and finds its way to the ocean. Likewise, when you surrender, you are not abandoning direction, you are aligning with a greater direction. The ego tries to move life with effort. The soul moves life through resonance. Surrender is how you stop resisting that resonance and start flowing with it. The mind fears surrender because it believes it must solve everything, but every problem the mind tries to fix is often just resistance disguised as logic. You've noticed this: the more you worry, the tighter everything feels. The more you try to fix a situation, the more tangled it becomes. Yet the moment you exhale and say, "I don't need to control this anymore," solutions appear effortlessly. Why? Because the universe flows through openness, not tension. Your resistance blocks its intelligence. Your surrender invites it. Surrender begins as a choice, but becomes a way of being. It's not something you do once and forget. It's a daily return to trust. You surrender when you forgive someone instead of replaying their offense. You surrender when you listen instead of argue. You surrender when you accept that not knowing is its own kind of knowing. You surrender every time you soften your grip on how things should be and allow them to be as they are. With each act of surrender, you align more deeply with the quantum field, and life begins to move through you instead of around you. Ancient mystics understood surrender as the highest form of power. The Sufis called it tawakkul, complete trust in divine order. The Taoists called it wu-wei, effortless action, where one moves without friction or ego. Even Jesus, in his final prayer, said, "Not my will, but yours be done." Each of these teachings points to the same truth. The universe cannot fill a clenched fist. Only an open hand receives grace. When you surrender, you stop vibrating at the frequency of fear and rise into the frequency of flow. You no longer act from reaction, but from alignment. You begin to see that life is not happening to you, but through you. Every experience, joy or pain, gain or loss, becomes an expression of the same consciousness, exploring itself in different forms. The resistance fades, and a quiet peace begins to radiate from your being. This peace is not passive, it's creative. It's the peace that births stars. One of the greatest misunderstandings about surrender is that it means doing nothing. But true surrender doesn't mean you stop acting. It means you stop acting from fear. When the mind is still and the heart is open, action arises naturally, without strain or hesitation. You say the right words without rehearsal, meet the right people without planning, find the right opportunities without chasing. You don't need to push the river anymore. You've become the river. Surrender also transforms how you see pain. When you stop fighting what hurts, the pain becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. It shows you where you're still attached, where you're still resisting the flow of life. Pain doesn't come to punish, it comes to purify. When you surrender to it, not in self-pity, but in acceptance, you dissolve the energy of suffering and transmute it into wisdom. The moment you stop saying, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" the frequency of your entire being shifts. Even on a cellular level, surrender is healing. Studies show that when we release resistance, our nervous system relaxes, our immune system strengthens, and our brain enters a state of coherence. Quantum biology confirms that our thoughts and emotions affect our molecular structures. This means every time you let go, your body literally reorganizes itself into harmony. The act of surrender is not only spiritual, it's scientific. At the highest level, surrender is the recognition that there was never anything to surrender to because you and the universe are not two. The moment you stop seeing yourself as separate from life, surrender becomes effortless. You don't need to trust the universe because you realize you are the universe, a conscious extension of its intelligence. When you truly see this, fear dissolves completely. You stop asking, will it work out? And begin to know, it's already working out, because it's all me. The quantum field rewards this understanding with synchronicity. Life begins to unfold like music, each event arriving in perfect rhythm. You find yourself meeting the right person at the right time, saying the right thing without knowing why. This is not coincidence, it's coherence. It's the universe adjusting itself around your vibration. And your vibration is purest when it's not clogged by resistance. When you live surrendered, even death loses its sting. You see that endings are just transitions, one form dissolving so another can emerge. You stop mourning what's gone and start honoring its transformation. Every sunset becomes a promise of sunrise. Every loss becomes a portal to expansion. Nothing is truly lost in surrender. Everything is transformed. Letting go doesn't mean apathy. It means love without demand. It means care without control. It means walking through the world with open eyes and open hands, allowing everything to come and go as it must. You begin to live like the sky, allowing clouds, storms, and sunshine to pass, untouched and unafraid. The irony is that when you stop chasing outcomes, the best outcomes find you. When you stop forcing relationships, the right people stay. When you stop trying to be spiritual, awareness deepens on its own. This is the paradox of surrender. By giving up control, you gain access to infinite power. You become the channel through which the universe creates effortlessly. Look around. Every expansion begins with surrender. Stars surrender to collapse before exploding into light. Trees surrender their leaves before new growth emerges. Oceans surrender to the pull of the moon to create tides that nourish life. Why should your soul's growth be any different? You are part of that same rhythm. The only difference is that you can resist it, but the moment you stop resisting, your evolution accelerates. True surrender is not about changing your circumstances, it's about changing your state of consciousness. Once you surrender, your outer reality will begin to mirror your inner calm. This is the law of resonance. When your inner vibration becomes one of peace, the quantum field rearranges itself to match that peace. The people, opportunities, and experiences that once felt far away begin to appear effortlessly, not because you chased them, but because you stopped blocking them. At last, surrender becomes joy. You no longer fear what's coming, nor mourn what's gone. You live in trust, flowing from one moment to the next. Even challenges feel sacred because you know they're part of your unfolding. The need to fix yourself disappears, replaced by the realization that you were never broken, only unfolding. And in this state, something miraculous happens. You begin to feel the pulse of the universe beating in your chest. You start to sense that every breath is shared with the cosmos. The line between you and everything else dissolves. You realize you've never been separate, never been alone. You've always been the universe expanding through your laughter, through your tears, through your surrender. This is the secret every mystic eventually discovers. The universe does not grow by conquering, it grows by allowing. The stars do not expand through struggle, they expand through surrender, and so do you. So breathe. Stop resisting the flow of your own becoming. Stop clinging to old timelines that no longer fit your frequency. The quantum field is waiting not for your control, but for your openness. The moment you release, it rushes in to fill you with possibilities you could never imagine. Let life move through you as light moves through space, unbound, infinite, and radiant. That is the final surrender. That is the highest truth. You don't expand by doing more or knowing more. You expand by letting go. Because the universe itself, vast, eternal, and alive, is expanding through you. When you finally stop grasping for control, stop forcing outcomes, and stop fearing the unknown, something ancient and eternal awakens within you, awareness. You begin to see that everything you once chased, peace, purpose, connection, love, was never hiding in the world. It was hiding beneath your resistance. The act of letting go is the sacred key that opens every door you have ever knocked upon. The quantum field, vast and infinite, responds not to struggle but to surrender. The moment you release your grip on what must happen, the energy around you reorganizes itself into harmony. Your frequency rises, not because you gained more knowledge or power, but because you remembered what you've always been, consciousness itself, free and limitless. Letting go is the moment the illusion of separation dissolves. You realize that you were never the storm, you were the sky holding it all. You were never the seeker, you were what was being sought. The more you release, the more you merge with the current of creation. In the end, the quantum shift is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering what you've always been. You are not the body moving through the universe. You are the universe moving through the body. You are not energy trying to find peace. You are peace expressing itself as energy. So breathe deeply and let the last of your resistance fall away. Trust the rhythm that has been carrying galaxies since time began. You don't need to control the flow, you only need to allow it. The moment you surrender fully, you don't disappear, you expand. You become the silence between stars, the pulse between worlds, the timeless awareness that watches it all unfold. That is the essence of the quantum shift. That is the final freedom. And that is where the journey of letting go truly begins.